Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and had a subscriber make me aware of something on the Facebook fan page, which I was not aware of, so I went to check it out, and that is TLC's Baby Bodybuilders. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing. Let's work on doing a little crafting, and let's talk about this. Now you guys know I'm not going to have a lot to say about this for obvious reasons, but let's really kind of go into what I saw here. What I saw with this is apparently a show to where they're following baby bodybuilders, as they're calling them. They mean preteen bodybuilders. You know what? As far as exercise and even being competitive goes, I don't have a problem with preteens competing in sports. You know, any reasonable sport that's low risk, low impact. They're not going to get too banged up and beat up. And I'm one of those people who actually say, you know, kids getting beat up and banged up a little bit is part of childhood. It builds character. You know, but there needs to be limits. Obviously, I don't know that I would put an 8-year-old into actual martial arts competition. I might not do that, but then again, maybe I would. If I had a child who really and truly was passionate about it on their own idea, and they came to me and said, I really want to do this, Dad, this is what I want to do, and they were aware of the risk, you know, I'd maybe consider even a contact sport like that, an actual combat sport, as long as it's not something that a parent has pushed them into. If it's something they want to do and they have the drive to go do it and compete at it, okay, I can understand being a supportive parent. You know, I think that's reasonable. But we're talking about actual sports that have an athletic component, that don't have real possible risk to your health. As far as weightlifting goes itself, it's been a mixed subject for me with preteens. I usually tell people it should be up to a parent to decide. You know, if a parent has a child who is interested in lifting weights, they're genuinely interested because mom and dad lift weights. They want to emulate what they do. I would say introduce them slowly. And it's up to an individual parent to decide when that child is ready. You know, that's not something that I think the rest of us should decide for a parent. I'm not going to tell a person how to raise their children. I just don't think it's my place to do so. But that being said, it's something that should be introduced slowly. They should never be going above 50% of a 1-rep max, meaning even if they're doing 10 reps, they better be 10 easy reps. You don't want to focus on a lot of progressive overload with children because that is risky. You can risk hurting children. You can risk slipping esophageal plates. And they're not going to gain the type of muscle mass that they would if they were after puberty anyways. So really pushing the limits isn't useful to them. I would much rather see them just do lightweight and work on technique until they've hit puberty. Technique, and a parent who knows good technique who can ingrain it. My problem there, a lot of bodybuilders and even competitive bodybuilders don't always know good technique. So if mom or dad are a bodybuilder and they're teaching this to them, I do think it's risky unless they have taken the time to go learn some biomechanics, proper form, and they're not doing silly bro shit that they learn in a gym that hurts bodybuilders all the time. You know, you're dealing with children here, and the children, it may not be their passion, or putting them at risk for something that may not truly be their passion, may not always be right. And it's kind of like with these beauty pageants we see, because that is what it is. Bodybuilding is a beauty pageant for muscles. It's the same thing. You know, we see overzealous parents pushing a child into it. That can be a real concern. And the reason I would say that's such a concern for something like bodybuilding is because of the seedy aspects of the competitive bodybuilding world. I'm sorry, guys, there is a very, very dark side to competitive bodybuilding. It doesn't necessarily exist in regular sports. There is not only all the drug use that goes with it, even in so-called natural bodybuilding, but you're pushing your children into a lifestyle that might predispose them early on to get involved with drugs later or to compete in actual bodybuilding. And I don't consider competitive bodybuilding to be healthy. I don't consider it a good idea. I don't really condone professional level bodybuilding. I'm not a fan. And I know people who do it. I know people who love it. It's their passion. That's fine. But I don't have to condone it. I can still be friends with someone who they love it. I don't like it. I don't think it's a good idea. And again, you're just predisposing your child into a lifestyle that is very, very possibly going to lead to them abusing drugs in very large doses later. And even if you're a so-called natural, that doesn't mean you're not predisposing your child into that lifestyle. Then there's the other darker element of it, and this is what really concerns me. And one reason I don't like seeing children involved in competitive bodybuilding, I don't want to see them anywhere near this pro circuit, is the sexual exploitation component of it. Bodybuilding is absolutely notorious at the competitive level for exploitation of these young bodybuilders coming in, exploiting them for their bodies, for prostitution. The whole G for P thing is very, very real. Enough guys have talked to you guys about it who are bodybuilders at this point on YouTube. It's a very, very real thing and is a very real part of the world. And a lot of young guys get sucked into it, roped into it, way too young, who don't even always know what they're doing with it, who end up doing even the G for P thing sometimes because they need the money. It's useful to them for the lifestyle. It's an expensive lifestyle, and they might be straight, but they got wealthy guys who are offering them money. So there's a very exploitive element to bodybuilding. Same thing with the women. I've seen it firsthand. A lot of the female competitive bodybuilders have these adoring male fans, but it's a sexual thing for them. And they routinely get money thrown at them for prostitution by these guys. It's very, very common. And anyone who's been around it long enough has observed this or seen it. My problem is you're taking children into a competitive environment, sometimes with the exact same federations in which all of this sexual exploitation and prostitution is going on. I don't like to see that. I don't want to see children around that environment. That would be a very, very big concern for me, just like it would be a big concern with even these beauty pageants to some extent. Now, I don't know how much goes on there, but as an outside observer looking in at beauty pageants, I could see for children particularly, I could see the very real risk of sexual exploitation, child prostitution, stuff like that becoming a real issue there. When I look at the bodybuilding world, and I know for an absolute fact the sexual exploitation and prostitution that is involved in that community and that world is there, because I've seen it, I've observed it, and I know lots of guys who talk to me firsthand about it in addition to my own observations of it in person. It's very concerning when those same organizations and same groups are hosting these child shows. Why are you wanting to inspect the body of a child? I don't think that, that just makes me very uncomfortable personally. And that just gives me the creeps. That's something that just is a red flag for me. Something that I just look at and say, whoa, this is a potential problem. And again, why are these people wanting to inspect the physiques and bodies of children? Oh, to look at their musculature and to see them flex. You know, we say the same thing in normal bodybuilding, but it ends up being a very large segment of the audience, and even some of the judges have a muscle fetish, and it's a sexual thing for them. So we see that all the time in the adult bodybuilding world. So these same teens are thrown into a teen or preteen bodybuilding world. I'm sorry, that is the potential to lure in pedophiles, absolutely lure in pedophiles, even among the judges. To lure in, again, all sorts of really bad, dark stuff. Because the bodybuilding world itself is so full of this bad, dark stuff. The level of drug abuse and prostitution just runs rampant in it. And to potentially put children at risk and bring them into that environment, I'm very uncomfortable with. And when, they're talking about this baby bodybuilder stuff, and you've got TLC and these shows running this, why aren't they talking about that dark side of bodybuilding? It's a very, very real part of that world. And you're bringing children into that world, a world of sexual exploitation, coming across as something very innocent. And you know what? It might be very innocent. It might be not a single case of this having happened yet in this preteen bodybuilding. There could very well be completely safe up to this point, not a single case of it, but you're already throwing them into a world full of this stuff. And then you're going to have adults inspecting their bodies wearing basically underwear to assess their musculature and physique of every part of their body. I don't feel right about that. That makes me uncomfortable. It makes me question what's going on here, and it makes me want to look at it and say, hey, what sort of oversight's going on here? How much are the police watching this? How much are child services watching this? Are they checking in on this and seeing what's really going on? Are they making sure there's nothing going on here? Because given the history of the bodybuilding world and the bodybuilding community, to throw children into that world, to be then in an environment up on a stage where their bodies are inspected, when you already have a lot of perverts and stuff already in this world, and a lot of people with a lot of sexual identity problems in this world, this particular world, this niche, to throw children into that is something that I think needs to have at least child services and the law enforcement involved in watching closely what's going on at these events. watching and making sure there's nothing going on between the judges or some of the sponsors and donators and any of these children who maybe, you know, have private meetings with their parents. They really need to keep an eye on what's going on here, because I see the very large risk of a potential abuse as a result of what's going on here and putting children into a world that they are absolutely not ready for yet, and predisposing them to a lot of things, because again, the competitive bodybuilding world is a very, very dark place. It's again full of prostitution, full of drug abuse of every single type, not just anabolic drugs, but narcotics and everything else. Seeing children thrown into that world makes me uncomfortable, and I'd really like to know what law enforcement are doing. I wish TLC, because their producers might see this video, I hope they're discussing that side of it. I want them to talk maybe with child services and the police and ask them if they're aware of what goes on in the bodybuilding world, if these children are being looked after to make sure that nothing inappropriate is happening. That's what I want to know. Why don't they run a special on that? That would make me feel a lot more comfortable. Or that might be too much for a channel like TLC, but TLC needs to be aware of what's going on in the bodybuilding world and what the potential issues are here of having children involved in this, let alone the potential injury or health risk from it, whatever dieting parents might be having them do. That's a whole other topic entirely. If parents are having children diet down to get leaner for these things, I'm going to qualify that as child abuse personally. Or they might even be putting drugs in them, and that's another big concern. A lot of these competitive bodybuilders use drugs themselves. They want to win. We need to make sure they're not injecting steroids into 6- and 7-year-old children already. That would also be a big concern for me. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.